and let me drop a link on you. All right. So next test is let me drop the. Oh, come on. OBS wants to update. No, not right now. Hang on. All right, there's a link. Now, next question is, can somebody, I'm going to jump over to the YouTube thing, play it. OBS wants to update. All right, can I get somebody to just say something, and I can actually hear you. I can hear everything now. It's all beautiful. Give me just some audio from anybody. It doesn't matter.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
All right, there's a link. Yeah. Now, next question is, can somebody, I'm going to jump over to the YouTube I heard you on my audio real time. I'm now just checking to make sure that that came through on the YouTube side. OBS wants to update. All right, can I get somebody to just say something, and I can actually hear you. I can hear everything now. It's all beautiful. Give me just some audio from anybody. It doesn't matter.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
All right, there's a link. Yeah. All right, beautiful. we are fully functional. Thanks, Jesse. Yep, I could as well. So we are green light. So what this means, it's just beautiful for the last 3.5 weeks of what we got going on here. What it means is that if you want to continue to drop in the chat, and I'll treat it like normal, but if you want to drop a verbal comment, just understand that if you drop a verbal comment, it will be on YouTube. Just understand that your voice, which by itself does not identify you, it doesn't violate FERPA, but further, I'm sort of like letting you know if you do say something out loud, it'll be your voice will be out there. Okay. Cool. So, yeah. So tomorrow's April, which means that's the end of the semester. I want to just remind everybody to be paying attention to the assignments online on Canvas. The idea here is that Chuck is very tired. No, continue to do the readings that are identified, continue to do, the posts, etc. Okay. We do have coming up in April the second book. Just keep that in mind. In about 2 weeks, you have a second book besides The Cuckoo's Egg. And there is a document, if you have looked on the Canvas page, there is a document that identifies previously approved books, and that's not comprehensive, because if you have a book that you'd like to throw in the mix, let me know. If it's already on there, then you're already good to go. But if not, and then we're gonna, if not, let me know. All right, cool. What we're doing right now is we are wrapping up intellectual property today, and then we're going to try to double back a little bit to freedom of speech. I got one thing I wanted to show you, and it just illustrates my own problem when we get down. We talked about the notion of a slippery slope, argument being a form of logical fallacy, right? However, there are in fact slippery slopes, but simply saying that something leads to something else by itself does not constitute a persuasive argument. Okay, in other words, things do lead to other things, but it's sort of incumbent upon you making the argument to illustrate how it leads, why it leads. But this is an example that I just want to throw up. I do want to throw up. I also want to throw it up on the big screen. This is just something that I came across um, March 8th. Yeah, just a couple weeks ago. Russia increases censorship with new law, 15 years in jail for calling the Ukraine invasion a war. Okay. This kind of strikes at the heart of the First Amendment, which states that Congress can't make laws, limiting certain kinds of speech. It doesn't say that, we can't create an environment in the workplace or in a personal place or in our club or in some other place um, where we can say, whatever we want, including offensive things. And we can talk a little bit about Will Smith and Chris Rock. We can talk about that. Um, but anyway, this is my problem when we do get into a situation in which government starts to weigh in on what you can or cannot say. For example, there are things that I believe, and there have been precedents. It's the kind of thing, again, that it's such a kind of third rail that it's very difficult to even have a rational conversation about it in today's world. And it's sort of like you're skirting, cancellation. Um, but there are situations uh, in which an appropriate and courteous thing is a socially courteous thing to do, words to say. Um, but government passing laws or state institutions, for example, like a university, passing laws with consequences and bite that sort of mandate the courteous thing to do, essentially to render illegal discourtesy. I have a problem with it. I have a problem with it. Even if I agree that to do so would be discourteous. And we've lost the ability, um, largely, by and large, to have a nuanced conversation about certain principles. Okay. And the problem is, I'm like terrified to even say it because of this exact difficulty with nuance. Like, some of the classic issues that are sort of raging right this moment, because there are, in fact, nuanced positions that can be taken. Also, I'm a big believer that one can hold multiple ideas in their head at the same time, or that we ought to be able to. We don't have to lump everything into one big team sport. And therefore, if you are on my team, you have to hold all the positions that my team holds, right? I hope that makes a little bit of sense. I'm being a little bit veiled. And honestly, there are situations where there are opinions that I hold that I think are quite reasonable, quite respectful, quite reasoned, and quite rational that professors in other, places have lost jobs over. Um, there you have it, which is, I guess, prima facie evidence that they're not reasonable or rational after all, and that I'm just a Nazi. So let me be the first one to play to play Godwin's law. All right. No, you know what I mean? It's the difficulty when you start controlling speech. One other thing, by the way, am I still okay? Everyone's very silent, so we're either just digging what I'm saying, but are we okay? Are we still, you can hear my little rant, my little diatribe. Okay, thank you, Dave. No memes to share. But I've got one more. All right, thank you. Thank you. No, it was silent, and in class I could see head nods, and I'm just like, I hope I'm not just talking to myself, right? The one where um, your phone call drops and you've been going for quite a while, and then you realize that the call dropped and you've been talking to yourself for like 5 minutes. Okay, I have one. I'm going to drop one more meme on the screen. But do you see the problem? Okay, you see the problem? That saying a certain word, and this is my problem, when you have an institutional control of speech, I'd rather just allow all the speech. If I have to draw the line, do I allow all the speech or do I allow some group, call it the government, to control the speech? Which would I rather have? And I'd rather have all the speech, you know, with certain very that it requires a compelling reason to control certain speech, right? And then I think you look for that compelling reason. And this is another one of I'm looking for something, by the way, but this is another one of the reasons why it's very dangerous when the Overton window, which we talked about, right? The Overton window defines this set of things that are acceptable in public discourse, that we can have a conversation, right? Um, there is, I don't know if I bet my audio doesn't work, but I'm going to drop a link for you. Uh, Hang on just a second. I'm just trying to find, everything's being slow as always happens when I start streaming. Just a second. And maybe I don't. There's also this one, which I came across. Let me just throw it up on the big screen for you. Again, that just deals with this notion of the orders of ignorance and the difficulty of seeing other worldviews. Check that one out. I think you might get a kick out of that one. Here's another one. As long as we're on a roll, who wants to talk about intellectual property? No, we're going to talk about this stuff. Here's another one. I like that one. That one kind of resonates a little bit, right? Okay, sorry. I'm moving slow here. And it's possible that I think I have this, but I don't actually have it. Hold tight. Just checking. Yeah, okay. This one will do. I know you think of this one. Speaking of which, I'm sure everyone's aware by now, right? I saw an article, I didn't grab it. This one kind of goes along with, let me see if these are fitting properly. Yeah, this is, let me scoochy that over so you can see it better. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Basically, you remember a conversation we had back when we were face to face, when I said that words have a lot of impact, but that words are not violence per se. I still hold to that perspective. And you can disagree with me, right? And we're all cool with that. And I respect that disagreement. Um, did I have someone jumping in? Or at least as a hot mic. But no, right? So anyway, somebody basically made the argument. This is, I think, just an illustration of the point I made, a couple months ago, that basically said that Chris Rock's joke was violence. And that was essentially a justification for Will Smith to step up on stage and cold cock him. I think the problem with that idea is fight your words with your words. Fight words with words. When someone's words are viewed as violence because they're insensitive or for whatever the reason is, um, and you then respond by cold cocking somebody, um, that escalation, it escalates too quickly, I guess, is really what I'm trying to say, right? Everything everything escalates, and you cross the line quickly into a realm of actual violence, of physical violence, right? So there's a spirit of violence. There are tinges of violence, but physical violence, I think, is a categorically separate, sort of discrete bucket when you physically enter a space. Even intimidation, even physical intimidation, is not precisely the same as physical violence. And I'm saying when you can't differentiate, when everybody's a Nazi, the term doesn't mean anything, right? When George Bush was a Nazi and Obama was a Nazi and Trump was a Nazi, the term doesn't mean anything. You've got to have the ability to separate out with some nuance what the subtleties are. Does that make sense? Um, and again, Chuck's opinion, right? If you disagree with me, talk to the hand. No, if you disagree with me, then I still respect that, because you get to, you know what I mean. And no one's being dinged down on grades if you happen to hold on different perspective. And that's also part of the respect that we ought to have, in public discourse. We're trying to model that right here. Okay, I'm jumping back up. Dave said, I think defending free speech is pretty uncontroversial. I believe in maximizing individual. I don't know that it is, Dave. That's the problem. I think that depending what you mean, depending on what you mean by free speech and the nature of that speech, and I think it should be uncontroversial, but I think it's not, Dave. So I'm going to disagree with Dave. -2 from Hufflepuff, Dave. Um, in the meaningless and arbitrary point system of Hogwarts. I believe in maximizing individual liberty, and I think free speech is definitely part of that. Agreed. Um, I think, what else did you say? Hang on a second. I think all forms of authority and domination must be justified. Agreed. Sometimes they're justifiable and some aren't. In the realm of free speech, they usually aren't. And I agree. I agree. But I do think there are justifiable limits, and the law reflects that. You know, you can't you can't specifically call to violence. You can't incite. I don't just get to say on Twitter, I'm going to assassinate the president. You don't get to say that, right? And you shouldn't get to say that. They will come find you and have a nice long talk. Um, yeah. So Steve said, I'm curious about your opinions on political correctness in correlation to freedom of speech. That line can't be crossed between words or violence, because who's to say when you cut me off in traffic that's a threat to my life? It is road rage now justified? So that's actually like 3 or 4 things, Steve, and I think they're very interesting and they're very good. I do believe that there is a point at which, well, we reached a point a number of years back. I remember Jerry Seinfeld talking about this, and a few other of the most famous comedians. Um, Used to be that comedy, going all the way back to, I mean, the first really bold comic was Lenny Bruce, the one who, the first comic sort of arrested for vulgarity, basically, was Lenny Bruce. Um, he became an inspiration to certain comedians like George Carlin, who was my absolute favorite comedian of the early 70s, sort of late 60s and early 70s, for about a decade. George Carlin was my favorite comedian. He went through some tremendous evolutions and got really, really vulgar, pressed the boundaries on a lot of things. He had one of his most famous bits was a thing called the 7 words you can never say on television. Well, he said those words, right, on the record. He said them. And anyway, but it was always historically the case, and there were others that pressed the boundaries of comedy. Chappelle, absolutely. Richard Pryor is another one. I mean, by the bounds, I mean like pressing some of the bounds of propriety. There are, really great comedians like Jim Gaffigan and Brian Regan and Seinfeld for the most part, that always kind of ran a sort of a PG 13 ship. Made fun of Gary Goldman, very similar. My currently favorite comedian working today. Um, but there are some. Steve Martin pressed the boundaries a little bit. Mitch Hedberg pressed the boundaries. Anyway, my point just being that some of these guys, Seinfeld talked about it, wouldn't go perform on campuses anymore. Comedians afraid. Your mileage may vary on what the right word is. Afraid, hesitant to come do their material on campus for fear of repercussion, for fear of being canceled, for fear of, you know, and comedy was one of those areas. I mean, did anybody see the Ricky Gervais Golden Globes? Was that the Golden Globes like a year ago? I mean, dude went, dude went absolutely ham. And there's like cuts to the audience. There's Tom Hanks going, you know, like, no, we're getting too close. We're cutting too close, right? But it was funny, but it was really offensive. I mean, it was personally offensive to the people in the audience. By that sort of comparison, of course, what Chris Rock did was hardly offensive at all in comparison, certainly. Anyway, all I'm trying to say is that what am I trying to say? To Steve's point, um, yeah, there's a risk now that if somebody flips me off on the road, right, that I can go rear end them because when they flipped me off, it was violence. And now, and this is my whole point, I'm going to try to get off this, but I just feel so passionately about it that when, I told you about the show that I saw where somebody was a guest or asking a question. Okay, our next question is from so and so. And her name was unfamiliar to the host, right? Her name was not Jane Smith or something, you know, anciently generic. It was something that they stumbled over. And, as readily you could have said, okay, did I, often this happens. Did I get that right? You know, or, help me say, because I think it's a sincere interest of almost all people, except for the certifiable a-holes, to want to pronounce somebody's name correctly, but they made a mistake. And then she said the name correctly, and then she said with this really pissed look on her face, "That's violence." And I'm like, "No, that's bullshit. That is not violence. I'm sorry. It wasn't even malintended. It was an honest mistake from somebody who was trying to actually say the name." So you get into this mode where if everything is violence, nothing is violence. If that's violence, then the word doesn't mean anything. Now, all of a sudden, I guess I've got free reign to just torch your house if I don't like your ideology. Maybe I don't like your religion, so I just torch your house. Maybe I don't like your skin color, so I don't torch your house. These have all been done, and it doesn't end well, and it's not a good thing. But you've got to be able to sort of draw the lines. Anyway, and Gidded said, draw a distinction between political correctness as a cultural institution and free speech as a legal one. No question. I think absolutely right. Right. There is a point at which you get into the First Amendment and the freedom of speech, which has to do with the ability of the government to pass laws, to the point of Russia passing laws about what words you can and can't say. But I do think that anytime you get a well-intended governmental intervention to tell you what the words are that you can or cannot say without a really, really damn good reason. You know, and it has to be, in my mind, overwhelming and compelling. Then I think and I would rather say, and if in question, if it's not absolutely compelling, then me personally, I'm gonna fall out on, let's limit the power of government to control our lives. Then we as individuals get to know. Here, and this is another example. Let me just say this. Um, oh yeah, there's the shot of that is the shot of Tom Hanks. Thank you, Drake. That's the one I was talking about. Yes, wasn't it the Golden Globes with Ricky Gervais? Um, it was it was something, man. It was really something. But again, the great comedians, in my view, press some of those boundaries and make people uncomfortable. You know, oh man, another one very not politically correct would be Bill Burr. In terms of pushing the boundaries, and I think that I find all of these guys pretty funny, but man, sometimes it's really uncomfortable. I mean, it just really. But they're also trying to spur you to think or to explore. And sometimes they're exploring a space, that they're just exploring the space. Anyway, yeah, no, thanks, thank you, Drake. That's okay. Plus one for Slytherin there, Drake, for dropping that Tom Hanks on us. Anyway, but here's an interesting example. But here's an interesting thing. First of all, let me run a survey. How many of you are familiar with survey? Let me see. When was that show? Sunday? Okay, I'm dropping the survey. I just want to know where the audience is at. The survey says, I am well aware of the Will Smith Chris Rock controversy from Sunday's Academy Awards. By which I mean, you heard there was a thing. That's not well aware. That's vaguely aware. This is like, you pretty much know what went down. Okay, now here's the next question. Um, I'm going to run another survey. Okay, hang on a second. That's the one right there, man. Thank you, Isley. Um, well, I mean, let me hang on. Okay, second survey. Um, yeah, and I agree with Steve about what I'm not. I think Jim Carrey is nuts. I think he's lost everything. Um, but yeah, we got 100% awareness. We got agreement with Jim Carrey, which it's also one of those things where it's like, wow, I actually agree with Jim Carrey. That's something. Um, yeah. So the survey question is: after the controversy, the person I respect the least, and I'm trying to say who lost the most ground. And you could argue, we could bust this survey up a little bit, right? Um, because you could say, I thought what Chris Rock said was offensive. Yes, no. We could have that conversation, right? Um, and making jokes about people's medical conditions is off limits. You can say yes, no. Um, you know what I'm trying to say. But I'm trying to say that let's assume that there was any offense at all from, which I think there's going to be either from none. I doubt anybody said that Chris Rock, he's really, he really gained my respect with that joke. I maybe depends on your value system, but I'm assuming from there to a loss because he said it versus Will Smith. We've got is three on that one? Yeah, three's neither, right? Where is that we're gonna do? Does that mean does number three mean they're the same? Let me edit it. I'm gonna go three is the same. Okay. But so here's the interesting thing. The survey says that okay, Chris Rock made a joke. He's a comedian. He's a very funny comedian. Um, so Chris Rock made a joke. It was obviously if somebody made a joke about as I, let me put it this way. I feel like I have a pretty thick skin, and I don't see myself getting pissed if somebody makes a joke about a medical condition that I'm suffering from. I do have some, um, but your mileage may vary, right? So it could be uh, you know that Jada and or Will were upset. So grant that it was offensive, even if it wouldn't have offended you or me. It offended them, obviously. But there were words. Then Will Smith responds with physical violence. Who lost more ground? In other words, the thing escalated. Even Will Smith's apology started with that there's no place for violence. He didn't say, at least in his apology, he didn't say, well, they were violent, so he was violent, so I was violent. He didn't say that. He said there's no place for violence, and what I did was unacceptable. He made it kind of a clear differentiation. It was other people that I saw articles saying Chris Rock's words were violence. And again, I just think I flat out disagree and reject that. Um, you know, Okay, what do we got? And then we got to get back to slides, cause yeah, Dave, I agree with Dave on Jim Carrey. He's lost his mind. I never actually thought on balance that Jim Carrey was that funny, except for The Mask. That was Jim Carrey's best role, in my opinion. Let me see. Brandon said maybe if Will Smith didn't laugh at the joke before I went up there, I'd have lost less respect for him. No, sometimes you laugh because there's a moment, and then you know what I mean. You're still hurting, but you laugh. I don't know. Um, Steve, in the pure hypothetical situation where you can negate one's actions, you have Chris Rock goes on with the evening and nothing happens. Will Smith has an opportunity to reach out on social media, empower alopecia victims, and enhance awareness on a situation that might not be known to many. Because of this, Will Smith has lost more than Chris Rock ever could. Yeah, I agree with that, Steve. Um, it's one of those interesting things too, because I have two very good friends, very different why I know these people, but two men that suffer from alopecia, and uh, it's not a pleasant childhood when you're going through that. Um, and I think culturally, it's probably more difficult for women. I don't know, and I'm not dropping any stats on that or empirical studies, but I believe culturally, it's culturally more rare to have a woman with a buzzed head, you know. But I think that's what led to the joke by Chris Rock about GI Jane, which was a movie starring Demi Moore who had shaved her head. She's a military thing. Yeah, Brennan haven't had respect for Will or Jada for some time. Yeah, there's that. There's that. Braden doesn't care about either of them. Yeah, same. Um, uh, Sam said it was a joke in bad taste and a terrible reaction. Agreed. Agreed. Oh, Sam, thank you, Sam. Okay, right now, Sam, just chipped in from the sand to make birdie and to take the lead on the chat. Sam said it was also terrible because the internet started to harass the wrong Will Smith. There's a senator from Maryland whose name is Will Smith. Uh, oh dear, dear, dear. This is where it all comes back around, right? Did you see this one? Where people are like blowing up this guy's Twitter account, why you be slapping Chris Rock? Like, oh, and that's the part where that's why we can't have nice things. You know what I mean? That's at the end of the day, culturally, societally, that's why we can't have nice things. And also, Steve is right, but he's a senator, so it's not that bad, right? I mean, it's probably deserved, right? He's a senator, so it's probably, oh my gosh, I shared that one with my wife. I was just like, it's just such a face palm. People just blowing up his Twitter account, harassing the crap out of him for sitting. You don't need, you're so dumb. You're going to take the effort to blow up someone's Twitter account. This is the problem with the Twitter mob. Come on, Twitter. Okay, Twitter, do your thing. Yeah, your thing is to be really stupid out of the chute and then go nuts and then go ham. Part of what I'm trying to do in this class with our time together is to shine some light on this so that we can all be maybe, again, and you don't have to agree with me, right? And I hope I keep saying that because I'm like terrified, someone's like, Dr. K said something offensive and insensitive and we need to cancel his ass. And he cannot have nice things either and he's dead, end of his career. So I keep reminding everybody I get to be wrong. That's one of the rights of free speech is the right to be wrong. And you've done it periodically, but you continue to have the right. Call me out. Um, oh, there was another podcaster also named Will Smith. Is that the deal, Sam? Who got blasted on Twitter? And then, right, Micah said, if Will Smith hadn't happened, we wouldn't have known the Oscars had happened. Yeah, that's true. I was like, oh, was that last night? Uh, Dave said conspiracy intensified. That's right. It was all publicity. And then there's a cross section of people that I personally know. Okay, let's go with this one. I'm gonna call out the conspiracy theorists. Last survey, and then we're gonna get off this. Um, the Will Smith Chris Rock slap was staged, fake, for publicity. Yes, no, and here it comes. Okay, now I'm going to do. Come on, man. Where's my? So I'm being really slow. Am I gone dead on audio? Because I've lost some responsiveness. Oh, here we go. Second survey. I know someone who believes the Will Smith Chris Rock slap was staged. Okay. All right, we got 16, 1 and 1. Yeah. So, Dave, I disagree a little bit. Dave said no one's mad at the publicity either. I disagree. I don't think this is going to end well. Look, you do the slap. You're Will Smith. You look like like you just lost your dog in I Am Legend as you're walking back off the stage. Then you have to stand up later. They ask you to leave. You refuse. You stand up later to accept the Oscar for Best Actor. I think I think his career is over. That's my own opinion. Or at least he won't be in anything for another 10 years, 5 or 10. That's my own opinion. Um, So Jess said, what would Will Smith have to earn from a stunt like that? I don't think there was much. Yep, and I agree with Isley. I wasn't sure what to make of it until I saw, you know, the statement afterwards. Um, well, yeah. So Braden, that's an interesting question. But when when you're coming, there's a put it this way: Smith trained as a boxer for the movie Ali. So I think he definitely has, a little bit of an ability to handle himself. All right. Yeah, and Andreval is glad we got memes out of it. Exactly. Case in point right here. Let me get rid of these. I'm going to start taking these down. And then this one, of course, which just really made me so happy, right? Because now the memes are happening. So at least we get a perma meme. Um, and this is just, again, just a reminder about our uh, conversational ethic. Think about ourselves, think about things. And then this one, I should not say this. Yeah, that's almost always not going to end well. All right, let's see. Let me get rid of Russia. That's what started this whole thing. Remaining comments. Yeah, here's the thing too. Right. So Jess said the Academy released a Twitter statement saying they asked him to leave, but it's doubtful, like they're trying to save face. Leans that way for me as well because look, what you need to do is just call security and have him physically removed if you're serious about that. Like you're like, well, we asked him to leave, but he didn't, so we let him go up and give a speech to accept the Best Actor Oscar. It doesn't. Yeah. Anyway, all right, let's go. That's relevant, right? That's why, like I said, man, when I started teaching this class at BYU about crap, what was it, 03, 04, like 18 years ago, this stuff didn't just write itself like this. Today, it absolutely writes itself. This cannot be scripted, right? There's like no, you know what I mean? This you just show up and just look at the news today, just pull up your favorite news app and you got everything you possibly could want. Um, let me see. I don't. But let me just say one other thing about conspiracy theories. For the most part, and in my mind, the idea that it was staged is a conspiracy theory, because somebody has to want to do it for some reason other than what it appears on its face. Um, and again, I can be wrong, right? Um, I'm a general conspiracy skeptic. And someone's like, "Oh, you don't believe there are conspiracies?" No, I do believe that you don't understand logical fallacies. Look, of course there are conspiracies. That's almost a tautological reality, right? Of course there are conspiracies. But the fact that there exist conspiracies doesn't make every conspiracy theory true, or certainly has no bearing on the one you're now spouting at this moment. Okay? It, you know, I tend to lead with high skepticism because who are they? You know what they do. You know what they're doing. Who are they? You know why they're doing that. This whole thing was just, this pandemic, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And I think the burden of proof is on the conspiracy theorist, not on the disbeliever. You got a theory about chemicals coming out of the back end of airplanes? You're the one who has to come up with the evidence and the proof, right? A lot of times it's a thing we call overfitting the data. Yeah. And overfitting the data allows us to take a certain amount of evidence and then come to find a pattern where none exists, you know. Anyway, let's get off of it. Sam was looking forward to us. Sam, you had no doubt in me, right, Sam? You knew I was going to pick this ball up and run with it. Sometimes it feels like this stuff just writes itself. It's like we had a game that we called Smear 'em. Sometimes it was called Pig Pile, but the idea was you just had a football, and whoever you play with as many kids as were in the yard, and whoever had the football, everybody would just run and just gang tackle, and then as you got gang tackled, you threw the ball in the air. Some other kid caught the ball, and it would take off running, and everybody would just run after him and tackle. That's all we're doing here is we're just playing Smear 'em. Um, oh man, why did Dave say Jermaine? Was it because I said Jermaine? Um, and I want to just say last thing. Steve said about Denzel Washington, who I think is, man, I don't know, top five actors of my life, you know. And from everything I can tell, somebody that, to the best of my information, really, really respected. You know, you said you're consoling a man who just assaulted someone. I also think that there's a value in understanding that not just this is the part, Steve, right, and others, where we hold multiple thoughts in our heads at the same time. Like what Will Smith did was, in my mind, reprehensible and inexcusable. Also, it was obvious that he was in a tremendous amount of pain and losing his crap and not handling it well. And have we all been in a situation where we didn't handle it well? Not justifying it, but do you understand that we can hold two thoughts in our heads at the same time? That that at some level Smith was both perpetrator and victim, and Chris Rock at some level was both perpetrator and victim. And we almost always bear there's something we could have done better, you know? But maybe Chris Rock showed up just going, I'm going full Ricky Gervais on everybody's butt, you know? But maybe, I don't know, what would Ricky have done? That's the question. Anyway, I'm just saying the fact that he just assaulted somebody does not mean we can't, you know. And Denzel didn't, I mean, I haven't seen the quote from Denzel. So, Steve, if you got that, you want to kick it my way, I'd appreciate it. Um, but, you know, sometimes in your highest moments when the devil comes hardest, no, I think there's a little truth to that. And, you know, it's not saying, Denzel wasn't saying what he did was not wrong. We got to be able to hold multiple thoughts in our heads. Like, for example, somebody who does, I'm not speaking of Will Smith now per se, I'm just saying we all know people, we've all been people who have done things that we regretted that were wrong by our own belief system, not objectively imposed, by our own belief system and our own sense of morality and conscience. What we did was wrong. And we know we were a good person. And we don't know why in the hell we did that, right? We've all done that. We have all in our adult lives. We all do that as kids because we're still developing, you know, cognitively, intellectually, morally, ethically. Everything's developing. We're figuring stuff out. Okay. That's way better than talking about treat secrets. But I want to get through this. And I don't care if we get through it today. We'll do our best. We'll see what we get. Okay, I'm jumping on. And by the way, just remember you are free to jump in the audio because we do have audio. And Steve, appreciate all your offers. Just happened to be right after class somebody who was a deep OBS expert. We got the thing taken care of after 3450 yesterday. So that's why we have this. So didn't mean to leave you hanging there or I really, really appreciated the offers. We just didn't get the schedule together. All right. So let's talk about trade secrets. Did we talk about trademarks? No, we didn't talk about trademarks. Okay, trademarks. The idea behind trademarks. Here we are pivoting. Um, the trademark. It's a distinctive sign or indicator by a legal entity to identify products or services to consumers. Okay. Let me see. What do I have an example here? Do I have an example? I'll give you an example. Here's a remote control that I just have. It goes to my I've got a big flat panel that I sometimes will turn on and put like golf on the big screen or something up there. Um, if you look, see right there in the middle, that's a Vizio logo. Okay. Now there's nothing on that that says, you know, trademark, whatever. I guarantee you that that logo is trademarked. Okay. What it means is I can't go build my own television, call it a Vizio TV, and then use this logo because it creates confusion. Okay. So what was the one who posted it last time? By the way, that was a great conversation. It was Dave. Dave who posted, if you look, just scroll up in the chat, right? Those are basically trademark violations. They're trademark. Because if you're just in a store looking for Fanta, and then there's Fontu, and what was the other one? What was the other? Actually, let me I'm going to throw this on the big screen because it's really, and I think that Dave, this is the kind of thing that would work really, really well to drop into the slides, right? But if I were going to go to the grocery store and I'm trying to buy Fanta, I look at it at a glance. Notice that Fontu or Fantas, I don't know, and Funny look the same. Notice that Unique Do and Maintain Do look the same. Notice that, what is that? Chiso Cola and Chat Cola and Cold Cola all look the same. The font, the colors, the white on red, the red cap versus the green cap from Sport versus Strike or Strite, doesn't matter because it's obviously trying to be Sprite. These are obviously trying to be Mountain Dew, right? Now that's different from when you have certain brands that are sort of like known knockoffs, like Mountain Dew. You've not Mountain Dew. What have you got? Mountain Dew. What's the competitor to Mountain Dew? The generic brand Mountain Dew. Pizza Hat. Dave. Not really. Tell me no. Tell me. Oh, Mellow Yellow. Thank you, Steve. Dave. Tell me there's no Pizza Hat. Tell me that's not real. Oh, and then hang on. Oh, this is such a much better lecture than I thought it was going to be. Pizza Hut also, just me, or did they rip off Red Hat? Did they throw Red Hat into the mix to go along with Pizza Hut? Pizza Hut plus Red, isn't that kind of like the Red Hat logo? Somebody want to drop a Red Hat logo in the mix? Oh my gosh. All right. So my point being, you can't, you don't get to grab. No, no. Okay, let's look up. What about diet? What about Dr. Pepper? Can we get a side by side on Mellow Yellow and Mountain Dew? Somebody have a Mellow Yellow we can just throw up on the big screen? And similarly with Dr. Pepper, Mr. Pibb. You're clearly when you have Mr. Pibb, you're communicating it's a Dr. Pepper knockoff. You are communicating that, but you're not trying to confuse them that you are Dr. Pepper, right? Because we all know there's only one Dr. Pepper. All the rest are imitators. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, here we go. That's the one who threw that up for me. That was Dave, right? I mean, it's the same color, but this part here, you're clearly not the same as maintain dew, right? Look at that Mountain Dew. Now look at maintain dew. See, to me, and I'm not a lawyer, but to me, this is not a trademark violation. This says that Mellow Yellow tastes like Mountain Dew. It's more like a tribute, right? That to me runs a lot closer to just being Pizza Hut. Can I get one more? Arm and Hatchet? Oh my gosh. Dried toothpaste. Let's throw that one up. This is great. Arm and Hatchet. See, when you got Arm and Hammer and now you're Arm and Hatchet and you copy everything, ow, ow, I just hurt myself. So that when you go to the store, you look, you glance, you grab. I don't think anybody buys Mountain Dew, sorry, buys Mellow Yellow thinking it's Mountain Dew. I think they might be thinking they're getting a cheaper Mountain Dew knockoff, but I don't think anybody actually thinks I thought about bought Mountain Dew. Interestingly, I mentioned Gary Goldman, favorite comedian. Has anybody had a cookie called Hydrox? He said that Hydrox should rebrand itself and call itself Hydrox by mistake because that's what everybody says when they bring it home. They're like, "Oh, I bought Hydrox by mistake." Like they're trying to buy Oreos, but they bought Hydrox by mistake. You know, that idea that if could you make an honest mistake, and I don't think Mellow Yellow and Mountain Dew are, are crossing that line. You know, can we get a Mr. Pibb and can we get a Mr. Pibb and Diet and Dr. Pepper? Somebody want to score one of those for us? And what's this one over here? Isley, Child Goku and a Dragon Ball. Interesting. And I don't know it. I don't know the. I mean, I don't know the reference. I mean, I've heard of it, but that's the that's the one that I was referring to up on the big screen. And then, yeah. Okay, here we go. So Steve going bold to try to win the chat here. All the knockoffs, all the Dr. Pepper knockoffs, and what do we got? Dr. Bold, Dr. Choice, Dr. Perky, Dr. Shasta, Dr. Becker, Dr. Spice. Where's Dr. K? Because there's a Dr. K. There's Dr. K. Big K, Dr. K. I have my own soda. Thank you very much. And then, but where's the original is the question. And here we have the original Dr. Pepper and Mr. Pibb. So you see that it's called Pibb now, but they did call it Mr. Pibb. Oh, my apologies. Uh, the allergies are still whacking. You're not going to get confused and buy Dr. Pepper instead of Mr. Pibb, but you might roll in, I don't know. These are mostly different enough. Dr. Skipper, the doctor, Dr. Wright, Dr. Tremor. Dr. Tremor? Must be high caffeine content. Dr. Spice, Spicy Dr. Becker. You see what I mean? What they're trying to do, should we bring it back around? Yeah, we should. What they're trying to do is get around trademark violation. Okay, that's what they're trying to do. A few more coming down the pipe. Yeah, thank you, you guys. This is great, man. This is grist for the mill right here. Um, so basically, you can there's common trademark rights by just simply saying this is a trademark and you mark it with TM. You can register your trademark, which creates further rights. That's all we really want to say. Just understand the difference between a trademark. The trademark associates to your brand. You ever? How many of you do this? Okay, let's do this. Um, Here's another survey. The survey says I have at least one time gone to the store shopping and found my preferred product by looking for the color. Give me a yes, no on that one. And that's a lot for me. Yes, yes, yes. You're looking for like, what's my detergent? I don't know. It's about this big. It has that high capacity sticker and it's red. And this is the shape. That's the power of trademark. Same thing with this cat cot. Have a break, have a cat cot. Right, the huge mountain, obviously with a ripoff of a North Face. Isn't that the North Face logo? Yeah, that's the power of trademark. You go in looking for, you just glance through. You're looking for a favorite candy, let's say if you have one, and you go to the like in the 7-Eleven or in the grocery store. There's like this Mondo just right. If everyone was a plain white wrapper and you had to read the label, 100 grand, Kit Kat, Snickers, Milky Way, there was no differentiation between any of them. It's a much, much more difficult cognitive task. By having trademarks, the color itself, even things like the angles, there was a litigation, man, and I don't know if this was trademark or exactly what, but it was a lawsuit between LG and Apple, and it was over the exact. This is just my phone. It was over the exact angle. Where are we at? Over here. It was over the exact angle. Like, what's the shape, right? Is it, there's a perfect corner. There's a perfect, you can make it come real flat. You can make it, there are differences. And it relates to the feel of when you look at a device. You might say, oh, that's just crazy. No, it's not entirely crazy because, there's also those kinds of things relative to automobiles, right? Um, Historically, the most recognizable hybrid on the road was the Prius. And one of the reasons the Prius was so noticeable was that it had a unique, nice, Dave, nice. The Prius, as one of, not the first, but one of the first, and certainly the first most successful hybrid car, the Toyota Prius, had a very unique design shape. You see the shape, and you knew it was a Prius. Today, I can't hardly tell anything apart from anything. But so there is that aspect, where these shapes, these curves, these what goes where. It's part of the look and feel. Some of that can be copyrightable, some of that can be trademarked. Okay, let's keep going. Trade secrets, and this kind of relates. Okay, Brandon, you think the Prius is the ugliest car on the road? I had a Prius. How dare you, sir? Chuck marches up on stage. The ugliest car on the road is a PT Cruiser. Braden and I are forming a coalition against Brandon. Yeah, PT Cruiser. No, no, Brandon, it's not a close call. It is not even remotely a close call. The PT Cruiser says 80-year-old behind the wheel. That's what a PT Cruiser says. Fight me. This is one where I've said all semester I could be wrong. I'm not wrong on this one. Okay. I don't think the Prius is ugly. Maybe they changed it. The original Prius, I don't know. But the PT Cruiser, that's the one that I get like a physical nausea over the PT Cruiser. It's like you're trying to be cool, but you never see anybody under like 85 ever crawl out of one of those. There's nobody in my generation or younger. No, there are people in my generation. It's sad, but there's nobody in my generation and younger than that are buying PT Cruisers. Okay, I don't care. Even that guy. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. See, no, no, stop, stop. Cash. Okay. Trade secrets. Here's the idea of a trade secret. You protect it by just don't disclose it. No, smart cars are cute. Braden. Smart cars are cute. Um, the recipe for Coca-Cola, the herbs and spices in Kentucky Fried Chicken, you know, there's like nutritional information, but you don't have to say how you prep it. Yeah. Um, by the way, Brandon, that's the back of the car, just FYI. What is that? Okay. Now you guys have lost it. You're into the weeds. You hit the bales of hay coming around the corner. Here's the idea. Let me read this. Formula, practice, process, design, instrument, pattern, or compilation of information which is not generally known or reasonably ascertainable, by which a business may obtain an economic advantage. The classic is a recipe for Coke. It never expires, okay? But the thing is, it can't be. So you can produce Coca-Cola and you're free to go drink it, and then everybody else is free to go make, whatever. You can do Dr. Pepper, and then everybody else gets to be Dr. K, Big K, Dr. Cola, Dr. Poison, whatever, right? And they get to try to knock it off, but most of those are protected by trade secrets. So the way you protect that is you put into place um, non-disclosure agreements, and there's no protection from independently duplicating it, like reverse engineering it. There's no protection at all about that. And you know that all those knockoff cheap generic Coca-Colas, generic colas, CR, what the crap is that thing? That's butt ugly. That's the Nissan Cube? All right, I think that's worse than a PT Cruiser. That is ugly as sin, man. Wow. Wow. Okay. Whoa, no, that's not the end of it. No. Okay. Let me start talking about these. We'll finish this up next time because we got 6 more minutes. But employment agreements. Every job you take, almost every job you take, is going to have an employment agreement. Okay? Typically, you have two options. You can sign it or you can look for work somewhere else. There are situations when you are so solid gold to them, when you are so much the shiz that they just need you, want you, and you're like, well, I'm not willing to do this or that. I'm going to cross that out and initial it or whatever. You're free to do that. Um, 99 times out of 100, that's not going to wash. So just keep in mind, right? And that's true. And you're like, well, I'm just not going to work for a company. I'll just freelance. Well, then you'll have a freelance agreement because somebody's got to protect intellectual property rights, right? The idea is that the company's trying to preserve an advantage. Um, the company puts a lot of trust in you. They give you a lot of information. They train you. They make you better. They give you material and information that's kind of insider. Maybe it's not technically insider trading, but like for example, it's not uncommon for companies to have, like if you have stock grants or stock options, blackout windows where employees of the company can't trade. Because you might be like, well, I'm not saying this is the case, and it's a hypothetical, but you might say, oh, I'm working on a really core product for the interior of the company, and the CEO has been spouting it, and the stock is kind of nudging, and people are writing about it, and I personally know that the whole thing is going to break to hell as soon as I ship it. And that the stock, so now is that insider trading in the strictest sense? I think maybe no, not 100% sure. I mean, I really am not 100% sure whether that would technically be insider trading or not. But I am saying that there's information that I have as somebody on the inside that generic people on the outside wouldn't have, you know. So, and I think at some level, it can be prosecuted. So to be cautious, they'll just have windows where nobody in the company can trade during that window, like when reports are coming out or when things are coming out in advance of, public reports, things like that. Okay, a few other ideas that we can sort of throw in the mix. Company generally owns whatever you create, even when you create it on your own time, like it or not. Here's the problem. Some of what you create for a company that pays you, you're creating on your own time. And what does it mean to have your own time? How many of you have ever had a great engineering idea, like in the shower or while doing something else other than being on the clock? Survey time. Let's do a quick survey. Last survey of the day. Hang on a second. The survey says, survey, I have come up with something brilliant while not on the clock. For example, e.g., in the shower, lying in bed, etc. Yes or no? And the no means you literally have never had a brilliant engineering thought that affected or was positively impacting your employer unless you were literally clocked in and now I'm going to start thinking about it. Because this is the problem with intellectual property is intellectual property comes from intellectual effort and investment. You see what I mean? And so what if you have another idea that's adjacent to another idea? Now, usually what happens is um, sometimes there'll be parts of the agreement that will say things like, as long as it's related to the core business. Like maybe I'm a golfer and on my own time I come up with a really cool idea for a golf club, but my employer is, a data communications company. Well, in that situation, I would say, no, that's probably not the property of Nike if I came up with, sorry, of say Samsung, if I came up with a better golf club or a better golf ball or something like that, right? There's usually disclaimers of that sort. But when you're doing technology or even writing code on your own time, you just got to understand what that employment agreement is saying to you. That's the bottom line. When it's related or close, they sometimes will give you the right of first refusal, um, which basically gives them the chance to do it in the company. But if they don't want to, they refuse it, then you get to do it. And that's how Apple started. If you remember the story. Woz created that thing, took it to HP and said, here's what I've been doing. And they said, like, well, nope, we're not going to do that. HP, could have owned the PC industry. All right. Okay, we're out of time. Um, when we come back, we'll be on non-competes. And also, for your FYI, there are only 2 slides left when we come back, non-compete and non-disclosures. And the other thing we can do is maybe have some discussions later on about just work-related intellectual property things, questions, next time. So I will see you all on Tuesday. You will see me on Tuesday, and I'm going to sign out. See you, my friends. Stay safe. Do kindness to other people randomly. Bless your soul.